Greetings, friends, fellow patriots, fellow citizens, and even non-citizens, and welcome to this week's edition of the We the People Convention weekly news and opinion podcast. My name is Tom Zawistowski, and I'm the host of this podcast, and I'm also the president of the We the People Convention organization. And this podcast and our website and our text messages and our emails and our social media and our donations to other patriots and patriotic groups that help us in our fight to protect and defend individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity are all paid for by the generous donations of our members to the We the People Convention. If you have the means to help support our efforts, please go to wethepeopleconvention.org and donate what you can. We'd greatly appreciate it. We hope that you had a terrific Thanksgiving. We did. Our family got together. We had just all kinds of great parties, lots of little kids running around, having fun, and just great food and laughter and just great joy. And we hope that you had a good Thanksgiving day and that you're enjoying the rest of the holiday weekend. We got caught in a little bit of a snowstorm. Certainly, I imagine some of you have had some snow issues, and that's going to continue. So be safe when you're coming home from wherever you were for Thanksgiving. But I hope you have a really great rest of the weekend. I'm wearing my Ohio State shirt because I've got to. Because today at noon, right after I'm done recording the podcast, Ohio State will be playing Michigan in the game. And it's going to be a great game. It's going to have the weather's going to be an influence in that game. So we're looking forward to that because this is a great time for football. I watched the Texas A&M game last night, Georgia Tech yesterday. All the rivalry games are this week. So wherever you are as a member of the We the People Convention, no matter what state you're in, there's a rivalry football game going on. And it's just a great weekend for college football. So enjoy all of that as well. So we've got, a really important show for you to, today, but I just wanted to, before we get into the news, I had shared with you guys via text and email this Bill Maher rant, like a 9-minute rant that he went on about Thanksgiving and how the left has ruined it. And I've put that now on our wethepeopleconvention.org website in the video section. And if you haven't seen it, it's really worth seeing because it's funny, but it's right on point about what the left is doing wrong and why they need to change because their position just is a losing hand that makes no sense. And he uses Thanksgiving as kind of the entree, that's the setting for that argument. Well worth going to the wethepeopleconvention.org website and going to our video section and watching that 9-minute video. Unfortunately, the weekend started, with tragedy on Wednesday, where we had 2 of our National Guard's members shot in Washington, D.C., and the one female guardsman has died, and the other one is fighting for their life. And this certainly, was terrible. We've been praying. We're praying for the remaining soldiers to survive. But it was not a good thing. President Donald Trump announced on Thursday morning that one of the National Guardsmen attacked in Washington, D.C. on Wednesday has died. I must unfortunately tell you that just seconds before I went on, right now I heard that Sarah Beckstrom of West Virginia, one of the guardsmen that we're talking about, highly respected, young, magnificent person, started service in June of 2023. Outstanding in every way. She just passed away. She's no longer with us. The other guard member, 24-year-old U.S. Air Force Staff Sergeant Andrew Wolf, is still in critical condition. The man accused of attacking Beckstrom and Wolf just a few blocks from the White House was identified as 29-year-old Ramahala Lakawal, who drove from Washington State to target the guard members and was taken into custody following the attack. He was injured but is not in critical condition. In an address Wednesday night, President Trump called the shooting an act of evil, an act of hatred, and an act of terror, adding that it was a crime against our entire nation. And it was. That's very true. Trump cited information from the Department of Homeland Security that the suspect entered the U.S. from Afghanistan in September 21 and criticized the prior administration of President Joe Biden for not vetting the Afghan refugees. Trump said the shooting underscores the single greatest national security threat facing our nation, saying we must now re-examine every single alien from Afghanistan who entered our country under Biden, and must take all necessary measures to ensure the removal of any alien from our country who does not belong here or adds benefit to our country. Here's a short statement, 1 minute statement from President Trump.
Great fellow Americans, earlier today on the eve of the Thanksgiving holiday, 2 members of the National Guard serving in Washington, D.C., were shot at point-blank range in a monstrous ambush-style attack just steps away from the White House. They had been deputized as part of the most successful public safety and national security mission in the history of our nation's capital, the D.C. Safe and Beautiful Task Force, which has achieved an unprecedented reduction in violent crime and crimes of all type. This heinous assault was an act of evil, an act of hatred, and an act of terror. It was a crime against our entire nation. It was a crime against humanity. The hearts of all Americans tonight are with those 2 members of the West Virginia National Guard and their families. The love of our entire country is pouring out for them, and we are lifting them up in our prayers.
And we were, and we are still praying. Please, pray for the Guardsman Wolf, that he can survive and recover from his injuries. President Trump vowed vigorous re-examination of every green card. The Trump administration announced it will pursue a full-scale, rigorous examination of every green card holder from countries of concern in response to the shooting of the 2 National Guard troops in Washington. A spokesman suggested the countries of concern include 19 mentioned in Trump's June executive order to safeguard Americans from foreign terrorists: Afghanistan, Burma, Chad, Republic of Congo, Equatorial Ghana, Haiti, Iran, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, Yemen, Burundi, Cuba, Laos, goes on, Turkmenistan, and Venezuela. They're going to be looking at all of them. Green cards allow foreign migrants to have permanent residency and the right to work within the United States. Over 190,000 Afghans were resettled into the U.S. after the Biden administration's disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan in 2021, per State Department data. Now, there's complications here. This killer worked for the CIA in Afghanistan for a long time. And there's a lot of those people we brought back from Afghanistan who were trained to kill by our CIA. And now they're here and they're killing our people. This is very concerning. And, President Trump is right to start to say we've got to get much more aggressive. And I assume, I'm going to bet that popular opinion, your opinion, my opinion, is enough already. Enough already. We've just got to stop this. And so Trump has also vowed to permanently pause migration from third world countries. And he had a tweet, folks, that just went off. And I'll link it in our podcast page. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but man, he was mad. President Donald Trump is vowing to permanently pause immigration from third world countries and calling for a program of reverse migration in the U.S. following the shooting Wednesday of 2 National Guard members. A very happy Thanksgiving salutations to all of our great American citizens and patriots have been so nice in allowing our country to be divided, disrupted, carved up, murdered, beaten, mugged, and laughed at, along with certain other foolish countries throughout the world for being politically correct and just plain stupid when it comes to immigration. The Post begins. How's that for a beginning? The official United States foreign population stands at 53 million people, according to the census, most of which are on welfare from failed nations or from prisons, mental institutions, gangs, or drug cartels. They and their children are supported through massive payments from patriotic American citizens who, because of their beautiful hearts, do not want to openly complain or cause trouble in any way, shape, or form. They put up, meaning you and I, the American citizens, put up with what has happened to our country, but it's eating us alive. A migrant earning $30,000 with a green card will get roughly $50,000 in yearly benefits for their family. The real migrant population is much higher. This refugee burden is the leading cause of social dysfunction in America, something that did not exist after World War II. Failed schools, high crime, urban decay, overcrowded hospitals, housing shortages, and large deficits. Okay, and then he talks about the Somalis problems, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. He said, I will permanently pause migration from all third world countries to allow the U.S. system to fully recover. That's an important thing. Terminating all of the millions of Biden illegal admissions, including those signed by Sleepy Joe's auto pen, and remove anyone who is not a net asset to the United States or is incapable of loving our country. I will end all federal benefits and subsidies to non-citizens of our country, denaturalize migrants who undermine domestic tranquility, and deport any foreign national who is a public charge, security risk, or non-compatible with Western civilization. It goes on and on. He ain't happy, man. He is not a happy guy. All right. And then Stephen Miller was on, on Thursday night, I think it was, and he had this to say about what actions they intend to take.
The president's remarks, I think, were among the most moving that I've ever heard. It was perfect for this incredibly tragic occasion, this heartbreaking, anguishing tragedy. Right before Thanksgiving, I think he spoke movingly and beautifully to what we've lost, but also demonstrated the tremendous resolve and determination to not only continue the mission these soldiers died for, but to expand the mission, declaring that far from being deterred, the commander-in-chief, our president, is sending 500 more troops to the city to show that no terrorism will sway us. And also having a conversation tonight with America, the conversation that we have to have with President Trump saying that Joe Biden, the Biden administration, the Democrats have inflicted on this nation the worst national security threat in our history. We've never faced a threat like this. 20 million people brought into our country from the most failed societies on earth. Afghanistan, Somalia, Libya, Iraq, brought here. No vetting, no conditions, no rules. Brought here on visas, brought here as refugees, brought here as asylees, brought here as illegals, brought here in every way imaginable, by plane, train, bus, automobile, by land, by sea. For 4 straight years, they deluged this country. And now more blood is being spilled as a result. What you heard tonight from President Trump, the breaking news here tonight, is saying that his government is going to accelerate efforts to review every person added to this country over the last 20 years, or the last 4 years, all 20 million. Now, obviously, if you're illegal, you're out automatically. But everybody else who was brought here, refugee, asylum status, whatever status, as he said, if you're not someone who loves this country, if you're not adding benefit to this country, then we're going to send you out of this country. Because it's enough already. No one else has to die. No one else has to be murdered. No one else has to be shot. No more empty seats are needed at the Thanksgiving table or the Christmas table because of what Democrats have done to this country. So tonight we heard from a commander-in-chief a historic announcement, a brave announcement, exactly what America needed to hear.
So that's a pretty powerful statement by Stephen Miller. And you can see, never let a crisis go to waste. The Trump administration is going to use this crisis to turbocharge our reverse migration efforts. You're going to see, we've already gotten over 2 million, like 2.5 million, and by the end of this year, probably close to 3 million illegal immigrants out of the country, either voluntarily or by physical deportation. But that's going to accelerate in 2026. And so, the president said we're going to send 500 more troops to Washington and because it works. And this is what's so outrageous. What are the Democrats protesting? They're protesting that the people are not dying. They're protesting that not enough criminals are on the streets. They're protesting that President Trump is taking these criminals and putting them away. Yeah, they are. They are protesting that because that's part of their overthrow of the United States government and Trump stopping it. And so again, I've said to you all of you who watch this podcast, and if you're new to this, I've said to you, we are in a real civil war, a hot civil war. People are dying. She just died yesterday, okay, or Thursday. We are not playing games, and the left is desperate because they can't win any elections, folks. They can't win any elections. They can't cheat, and there's lots of work being done to make sure they can't cheat. But they're desperate, and so you're going to see violence. But you're going to see Trump and Hegseth and Noam and Bondi and Patel and those guys answer that violence. Not like 2020 where they just let them go, right? Oh, it'd be wrong for President Trump to confront these Antifa rioters. Oh, yeah. No, it wouldn't have been wrong. It would have been right. We're in a hot civil war. Know that. Fight that. Support that. And you do, and I'm going to have evidence of that before the first half of the show ends. But just understand the fight continues. And where is the fight? Trump is taking this fight to the left in Washington, in Nashville, in Charlotte, in Chicago, in Los Angeles. And where are they going now? Well, they're heading to another blue city. They're going to New Orleans. And this is with the invitation of the governor of Louisiana. Border agents are planning to hit New Orleans with immigration raids after Thanksgiving. The Democrat-run city is expected to see sweeps similar to the ongoing operations in Los Angeles, Chicago, and Charlotte, where agents have arrested hundreds of illegal immigrants. No, it's thousands. They've literally arrested thousands and deported them. Border Patrol Commander Gregory Bovino, who has led the other operations, is expected to descend upon the city with roughly 250 federal agents starting the first week of December, and that's right this week, in Operation dubbed Swamp Sweep, according to multiple reports. The goal is to arrest roughly 5,000 illegal immigrants living in both Louisiana and Mississippi. The city's Democratic leadership is now bracing for impact. New Orleans Democrat Mayor-elect Helena Moreno recently launched a website to instruct immigrants on how to navigate encounters with Border Patrol agents and not get caught. Yeah, why would you do that? Why would you do that if you cared about the United States? But they don't care about the United States. They don't care about you. They don't care about our military, as you just saw evidence by this, the seditious six saying, oh, military people should, disobey illegal orders to divide. That's a color revolution, folks. These are CIA tactics that we have used in other countries that are now being applied to our country by people who were in the CIA that we trained. And now they're traitors. Now they've turned on America and they're trying to destroy us. And we've got to defeat them. They won't stop until they're in prison or they're deported, right? And that's where we're headed. So don't expect the violence to stop. It's going to get going more. Now, Trump mentioned the Somali situation, which is a really bad situation, okay? And massive Somali welfare fraud cases in Minnesota are now being exposed. And it's just unbelievable what's going on in there. Networks of fraudsters, many from Minnesota's Somali community, exploited welfare programs and raked in billions of taxpayer dollars. At least 3 major scandals are involved, one of which has developed for years. 2 others recently surfaced. Then came new revelations that inspired presidential action and touched off calls for further investigation. The Department of Justice said Minnesota's nonprofit called Feeding Our Future, don't you know? It doesn't sound great. All the lefty names are always sound so. The Affordable Care Act, which is bankrupting our healthcare system, is totally unaffordable, right? Feeding our future, yeah, you bet they didn't feed anyone's future, but their present, greed. And its affiliates stole more than $240 million in federal funds in what constitutes the nation's largest COVID-19 pandemic relief scheme. This was a brazen scheme of staggering proportions. They've arrested over 78 people so far. About 50 defendants, including a nonprofit group founder, Anthony Brock, have been convicted. They've already convicted some of them, and now they're getting more of them. And it's all because of Tim Walz. It's all because of the lefties. See, why are our cities a mess? because they're run by Democrats. How did they win? By rigging elections, by busing people to the polling stations, by telling people you're going to get gift cards or money for voting. That's how they won all these Democratic cities, and the Republicans did nothing to stop them. Understand, we got enemies on both sides. The rhinos are just as bad as the Democrat, communist, Marxists, okay? But so what Trump is doing with these things in these cities, where we're sending in troops and cleaning up the cities, I said this when he first started. It is a brilliant election year strategy. Because I don't care what they do. I told you last week that Fox News was covering the protests against the ICE. It's all you see is the protests. They weren't covering what the people in Los Angeles, Chicago, Memphis, Charlotte, these other cities, what the people are saying. You can see that on X and TikTok and Instagram and all that stuff. You know what you see? Man, this is great. I never knew it could be this way. My whole life I've been afraid to walk the streets. Now I'm out walking the streets. What's that message going to do when it comes time to vote? The people you've elected your whole life have put you in this prison, and Trump's letting you out and showing you don't have to live this way. I think that changes a lot of votes. No one's calculating that. I'm telling you, it changes a lot of votes. And he's going to march through how many cities by next election in November? It's brilliant. And it diffuses their color revolution. It's attacking them right at the heart. And you got to talk about that. Because why haven't they stopped it? You know why? I'll tell you why. And I saw, months ago, I saw a black woman from Chicago going, hey, y'all, you want to know why there's all this crime in these cities? Because you dummies, you taxpayers, your elected members of Congress and your state legislature, many of them are Republicans, send us money. Oh, we have a crime problem in New York. Send us billions of dollars for our police and our fire. And we have homeless and drug addicts. Send us billions of dollars. Then they steal it. Notice how they haven't fixed the homeless problem in California, right? Or in San Francisco. Yeah, Gavin Newsom wants to be president. Do you get the deal? Do you see how it works? That's why cutting them off isn't cruel. It's cruel to you and I. It's cruel to the American taxpayer. They need to be cut off. Like the one guy I played a video for you, when the snap thing, when the shutdown was going on, and this black guy was doing a podcast, and he said, hey, y'all, I hope they discontinue SNAP. You people are living off of it. You're abusing it. His community's being destroyed because of dependency. That's what's going on. That's what Trump's fighting. That's what you voted for. That's what you got to keep supporting. Okay? But that's what's really happening. So Trump said this, he threatens to revoke, and he didn't just threaten, he revoked immigration protection from the Somalis in Minnesota because they had this temporary protected status because they're from this POS country that has no government, no nothing, okay, Somalia, and they come here and they're stealing Minnesota taxpayer dollars through fraud, and they're sending it to Somalia to the Islamic terrorists. This is what they do when you have stupid people in government like Tim Walz and the mayor of Minneapolis. This is what they do. This is what they were doing to all of America under Barack Hussein Obama and his Marxist comrades, and then under Joe Biden. They were preying on us through U.S. aid. Trump's stopping that. It's a big deal. That's why I'm getting a little animated, because I think too many of us just go, it's it's no big deal. It's just something that happens. No. It's why we're broke. It's why our country's having all these problems. And this is why it's so important for you to be aware and talk about it with other people this Thanksgiving weekend. And say, do you see what Trump's doing? We're under attack. He's defending America. And what are the Dems doing? Oh, here's what the Dems are doing. Blue states revolt. Democrats sue Trump over SNAP rules targeting immigrants. 21 Democratic states in the District of Columbia sued the Trump administration on Wednesday over the new SNAP eligibility requirements that they say block groups of legal immigrants from accessing the program. Okay? One disputed provision would require green card holders, this is what you get, when you come to the United States, to wait 5 years to get government benefits. That's for us. That's good for us. What are the Dems doing? Well, 21 of their attorney generals are going to court to stop protecting us and to help who? The illegal immigrants they imported to destabilize our nation. How much evidence you want? There's the two sides. We're for individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity, right? Which is what our Constitution gave us. The responsibility to take care of ourselves. Therefore, state control. Dependency on the state. You can't live. Barack Obama told you, you can't survive without us. Yeah, we can. Yeah, we can. But that's the fight. Which side are you on? That's the fight. All right. Enough. I want to talk about some good things, okay? Some good things. And this got, again, Trump is the master of media, but sometimes I gotta go, what the heck? He makes this big announcement right before Thanksgiving, and it disappeared. It can't disappear. I'm asking you to take the videos I'm going to show you and talk about this story because it's a big deal. A big deal. But most of you probably haven't even heard about it, so here we go. Trump signs executive order to launch Genesis mission. Okay? President Donald Trump unveiled today the Genesis mission to accelerate AI for scientific discovery. Let's see. Basically, the Genesis mission is a new national effort to use artificial intelligence to transform how scientific research is conducted and accelerate the speed of scientific discovery. The Genesis mission charges the Secretary of Energy, and you're going to hear from him next, with leveraging our national laboratories to unite America's brightest minds, most powerful computers, and vast scientific data into one cooperative system for research. The order directs the Department of Energy to create a closed-loop AI experimentation platform that integrates our nation's world-class supercomputers and unique data sets to generate scientific foundation models and power robotic laboratories. The order instructs the Assistant to the President for Science and Technology to coordinate the national initiative and the integration of data and infrastructure from across the federal government. Priority areas of focus include the greatest scientific challenges of our time that can dramatically improve our nation's national, economic, and health security, including biotechnology, critical materials, nuclear fission and fusion energy, space exploration, quantum information science, and semiconductors and microelectronics. Okay, now that's a lot. That's a word salad for a lot of you. A lot of you aren't getting it. So I'm going to play you two quick videos. One is their promo for this, which you can find on X, and you'll find it linked in our podcast page this week, okay, that you can share with people. So just take a look at this promo, okay?
In every age, humanity invents new ways to see further. The telescope let us glimpse the stars. The microscope revealed the worlds within us. For centuries, thinkers like Leibniz, Shannon, and Turing dreamed of making all knowledge computable. But today, knowledge grows faster than our ability to understand it. Trillions of data points, a universe of information still unconnected. Now, a new instrument emerges, one capable not only of observing the universe, but of understanding it. Genesis mission will transform how science is done in America, uniting our brightest minds, most powerful computers, and vast scientific data into one living system for discovery. Built on artificial intelligence and quantum computing, it will radically redefine the scale, speed, and purpose of scientific progress in America. This is the work that will define our generation's legacy. A new revolution begins, one guided not by competition alone, but by curiosity, imagination, and the belief that discovery is the truest form of progress.
Okay, so that's their promo video, and this is our Manhattan Project. This is the Kennedy saying we're going to go to the moon within 10 years. This is showing you what I've been saying all along, that we must win the AI race to super intelligence. Because if the Chinese or the Russians or anybody else wins, they will enslave us. This is the kind of whole of government we're going to put all of our resources focused on this thing. Now, I know many of you are afraid of AI. I know many of you are concerned about the moral issues with AI, and I actually have an AI story in the second half of the podcast. We're going to touch on that. But this is going to happen, and if it's going to happen, it should be us that guides it. It should be America. It should be the land of the free and the home of the brave that goes into this new world that's going to change everything. Everything. Okay? Everything. Now, I'm going to play this little video from Secretary Wright where he gets a little more specific. Not as, aspirational as that video was. This is a more direct.
With this pen today, President Trump signed an historic mission. This is reminiscent of the Manhattan Project that brought World War II to an early and successful end, similar to the Apollo projects that put a man on the moon in 1969. This is an all-in national effort to take the power of AI and pair it with the 40,000 outstanding scientists and engineers at our national labs to use the world's largest supercomputers to advance innovation and science, to fix our rising energy costs, to give better economic opportunities for our citizens, to make longer and healthier lives possible. Today was not incremental, Brett. It was transformative.
40,000 scientists focused on one goal. That's what it takes to beat the Chinese. Because guess what? In China, Xi just says, everybody's working on this, and they're all working on it. And what's been going on up to now is you got Musk with X, and you got OpenAI, and you got Google, and you got Meta, and you got private things going on. You got federal things going on. But it's not coordinated. It's not focused, right? That's what they're talking about here. They're talking about taking the brilliance of America, the entrepreneurship, the free thinking, and focusing it on AI and then getting it to solve the biggest challenges in our world. Curing cancer, getting abundant energy for everyone, where energy is so cheap, it's like your cell phone texting now, which costs nothing, right? It's about abundance for the world. It's about efficiency. Now, my concern is two things. The Manhattan Project, wasn't, public. It was behind the scenes, but Apollo was, right? But the other thing is, the Manhattan Project was, we're going to build the nuclear weapon, and Apollo was going to put a man on the moon before the end of the decade. I'm a little afraid that their goal is too broad. I would like to see that get narrowed, right? And then I would have even been happy if they would have said the goal is to bring all this together to develop artificial superintelligence, which is got a lot of definitions, folks, but basically what I'll tell you is it's having AI with the knowledge of all the world. That your AI that you would be able to use on your computer, your phone, or on your website or whatever would be have all the knowledge the world has ever produced. That's super intelligence. Now, some people think that will make the computer alive and human and all that. That can all be debated elsewhere. But that should be the goal, because from that comes everything else. Okay? If you get super intelligence, you can create new materials. You can create, new energy sources. You can solve pollution problems. You can do all kinds of things that benefit mankind. This is a big deal. Treat it as such. Again, the media doesn't want to celebrate America. They want to tear us down. This is what you need to talk about at Thanksgiving and at Christmas. It'll all be linked on our podcast webpage. Okay? All right, a couple more stories in the first half, and then we'll take a break. This was good news. This was good news. Illegal Georgia lawfare election case against Trump and others dismissed. Get out of here, fat fanny. Get out of here, you lawfare criminals. Georgia election case against Trump dismissed entirely. The prosecutor dropped the Georgia 2020 election interference case against President Donald Trump on Wednesday, saying it was no longer realistic to continue pursuing it. That's not the only reason he stopped it, as you'll find. In filing in the Superior Court of Fulton County, Georgia, prosecuting attorney counsel director Peter Santaclaus said that he was dropping the case against Trump and his co-defendants to serve the interests of justice and promote judicial finality. The filing brings an end to a lengthy legal saga that included Trump's iconic mugshot. Remember his mugshot? They took a mugshot of the former president of the United States over a complete lie that was orchestrated in the White House, where Fanny's lover went to the White House and was told how to prosecute this as a RICO trial against Trump for what? For asking them to look at the election results, which were fraudulent, right? That's what happened here. And to the removal of District Attorney Fannie Willis from the case over allegations that she improperly appointed her ex-boyfriend as a special prosecutor to investigate. The presiding judge approved the motion. The case is hereby dismissed in entirety. Fulton Superior Court Judge Scott McAfee wrote, in a briefing attached to the motion to dismiss, Skandalakis explained in detail his decision to drop the charges. Here you go. Here's where it's all laid out. As a former election official who ran as both a Democrat and a Republican, and now as the executive director of a nonpartisan agency, this decision is not guided by the desire to advance an agenda, but is based on my beliefs and understanding of the law, he said. I begin the process of evaluating this case with a basic truth. It is not illegal to question or challenge election results. There it is. There's the big payoff. I begin the process of evaluating this case with a basic truth. It is not illegal to question or challenge election results. Our nation's foundational principles of free speech and electoral scrutiny are rooted in this very freedom. F you Marxist lawfare creeps. And now they all need to be prosecuted for what they did, because they did it on purpose. And someone said to me, well, that's great for Trump. And again, it was Mark Meadows and Sidney Powell and all their attorneys, John Eastman and these guys. Where do they go to get their legal fees back? Where do they go to get 5 years of their life back? Yeah, where do you go for that? So I'm not satisfied yet, but it was great. It was great. Because, again, it's another example. And you can share that story. It's real short with oh, yeah, you know how you thought Trump was guilty of all this stuff? Yeah. It's not illegal to question election results. Okay? So then you had this happen, and a lot of you were like, oh, here we go. Here we go. Judge dismisses indictment against Letitia James and James Comey over prosecutor's appointment. And so everyone's like, oh, yeah, it's a Washington, D.C. judge, a lefty, and she throws it out. And so now Comey's off and never going to get prosecuted. Not true. Not true. She said, okay, in her ruling, She said, I agree with the Attorney General's attempt to install Ms. Halligan's interim U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia was invalid, and because Ms. Halligan had no lawful authority, meaning they're claiming that the judge, the prosecutor, was not legally appointed. That's not true, but that's what this judge says. And because Ms. Halligan had no lawful authority because she was illegally appointed, I will grant Mr. Comey's motion and dismiss the indictment without prejudice. Meaning, without prejudice means Trump can refile it. They can refile this. They can appeal this decision. He's not off the hook. Trust me, way more coming, and not in the D.C. courts, but in the Florida courts. Big difference, okay? Unfortunately, it shouldn't matter what court you're in, should it? If we are a nation of laws, not of men, if we have equal justice under the law, if we follow the rule of law, that should never have happened. But it did, because the left bastardized our laws. They rigged our courts against the American people and created this two-tier system so they could operate with impunity while persecuting you and I, which is what January 6th was all about. That they ain't winning, we're winning. They ain't winning, we're winning, okay? And here's another way we're winning. Trump doesn't take off ever. Trump works out of, again, they're going to find out the guy has two hearts or something when he dies and they do an autopsy because the guy's superhuman in his work. And then the left is trying to tell you, oh, he's getting old. Look at he's limping a little bit. Give me a break, man. He can outwork any of you clowns. He does every day, and here's more proof. I don't know, in the middle of the night he's doing this. Trump to void all documents allegedly signed by Biden via AutoPen threatens perjury charges against Biden. You gotta love this. President Donald Trump announced on Friday he's terminating all documents allegedly signed by former President Joe Biden with the AutoPen. In a true social post, Trump claimed 92% of documents signed during Biden's presidency were done with the AutoPen. The AutoPen is not allowed to be used if approval is not specifically given by the President of the United States, Trump wrote. The radical left lunatics circling Biden around the beautiful Resolute desk in the Oval Office took the presidency away from him. Trump said he is canceling all executive orders and anything else that was not directly signed by crooked Joe Biden because the people who operated the AutoPen did so illegally. The U.S. government has used AutoPens since the Truman administration, and the Department of Justice Office of Legal Counsel previously confirmed use of the device is legal for presidential signatures on legislation and executive acts so long as it is authorized by the president. In Comer's committee's investigation of the AutoPen, they would not say that Joe Biden, they had no proof that Joe Biden authorized the use, okay? However, Trump claimed Biden did not approve the signatures and threatened to charge him with perjury if he says he was involved in the AutoPens. I think it's a simple process. You just bring Joe Biden in and say, okay, this is this executive order signed on this date. What was in it? Think Joe Biden can remember? You think he could give you even a clue? He would fail that test. So how do you say he knew what it was in it? Well, they can say, well, he was saying then, but he wasn't then. Well, where's the email or the text message or the witnesses that Joe Biden said, okay, thanks for explaining this to me. I think it's a good idea. Let's pardon these people who are nonviolent. Except they were violent. He didn't know. Okay? Who knows how this is going to go in the courts? But it's going to go to the courts. It is unclear who will validate the signatures on documents allegedly signed by Biden, but that's one way to do it. And let's take it to the courts and let's end this forever. And the people who did this, they need to be prosecuted. They're traitors. They're traitors. They, without being elected, took over the power of the presidency of the United States. Yeah? You want to talk insurrection? You want to talk about a coup? How's that? Is that a coup? Yeah, that's a coup. And so I said, you and I get it. You and I are backing President Trump. We understand we're in a counter-revolution. The revolution started with the commies and the Muslims and everybody joining together to overthrow our government, starting with the election of Barack Obama, which was a joke, okay, was a psyops, going all the way to last year. It's a counter-revolution we are mounting against their revolution, and we have to stick with Trump. And guess what? You are, we are, the country is in spades. Here's the numbers. Donald Trump continues to maintain overwhelming support from Republican voters, with CNN data confirming that 87% of Republicans currently approve of the president and is unchanged for 6 months. That is the best in the 21st century. Okay? This approval rating places Trump ahead of all other 21st century presidents in terms of second-term party support, eclipsing both George Bush and Barack Obama, who each held 78% approval from their respective party bases at the same point in their presidencies. Trump's at 87%. CNN data analyst Harry Eaton described Trump's standing as immovable. It's like a rock, he said, referencing Bob Seger. The Republican base is sticking by Donald Trump at this point in time. He emphasized that Trump has not lost any Republican support over the past 6 months, reinforcing the narrative that despite shifting political dynamics elsewhere, the president's support within the GOP remains constant. In the same CNN segment, Eaton highlighted Trump's unparalleled influence in Republican primary races. The data shows that in 2020, Trump-endorsed candidates won 98% of the time in Republican congressional and gubernatorial primaries. That trend continued with a 95% success rate in 2020 and a 96% success rate in 2024. When you go up against Donald Trump, Eaton remarked, you're going up against a buzzsaw. Okay? What does this mean? This means that we've got to just turn out like we did last year in 2026, and we're going to crush them. And we're doing all kinds of things to dismantle their cheating operations, from validating the voter rolls to having the Supreme Court look at the illegal gerrymandering, to all of it. We just got to fight, and we're going to win. And that's what I'm asking you to do, right? That's what it's up to us to protect and defend our individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity. Donald Trump is doing exactly what you and I elected him to do. Now we've got to keep his back and continue to put pressure on the rhinos in the House and the Senate who don't like Trump, don't want to do what we elected them to do, but Trump is forcing them because of those statistics. About 96% have to have his endorsement. That's why Marjorie Taylor Greene dropped out. She wasn't going to win if Trump didn't endorse her, and he pulled his endorsement. We got to back that up because we're in the fight of our lives, and 2026 is the tipping point. That's the tipping point. By the time we get to 2028, if we win this coming year, the Democratic Party will cease to exist, and lots of them will be in prison or deported, and we will get our country back. And the world, thanks to the Genesis Project, will see something that can't even be imagined by most people today. Make America great again is going to make the world great again. Okay? All right. Going to take a break right now for a couple messages about our organization. We'll be back after that. You've been listening to the We the People Convention News and Opinion Podcast. My name is Tom Zawistowski.
The We the People Convention News and Opinion radio program is paid for by donors like you. You can donate to the We the People Convention and support our cause by going to wethepeopleconvention.org or by sending your check in any amount to We the People Convention, P.O. Box 6211, Akron, Ohio 44312. When you're playing a video, including our podcast, you'll see this little cloud button, and if you click it, it'll actually download the video to your hard disk. And this works on our podcast page as well. if you're playing our podcast, and it's going to be loud, so I won't play it for much, but there's our podcast playing, and you can see this little, download button. Okay. The other thing you got to notice on our podcast page is that there's a link here where you can send me a message about this podcast. Hey, it was great. Hey, I didn't like it. What, something was wrong, or here's a correction, that kind of thing. You can use that link. And then these are the stories that I covered in this particular podcast. And you'll see there's links that go to the stories, to the articles that I used in reporting on that. So you can click on that. You'll also see that you can sign up for our emails and text messages, but you can also watch our podcast on Roku TV and on Amazon Fire TV. And these are the instructions for doing that. So this is all on our podcast page, right on the front page where the yellow button was. So if you click there, this is our podcast page. These are the instructions for watching on Roku TV or Amazon Fire. And I watch our podcast on TV. It just feels more comfortable. So you can do that. We're also on Rumble. If you go to Rumble, you should join Rumble. And it's Tom Z at WTPC. You'll see our podcast there. So you can get us a lot of different ways, including on Apple iTunes. And then this is an audio version of our podcast. If you click here, it'll just play the audio of the podcast. It will not, show you the video. So people can, listen to that while they're jogging or, working out, working in the yard, or just relaxing and just want to listen to the audio and not watch the video. And again, this is available on phone, on your iPad, on your laptop, on your computer, any way you want. And you can share, this, whatever you see. If you're on a page that you really like, and you see an article that you think, geez, I've got to share this article, with someone in my family. You can send them an email by clicking on the little envelope. You can post it on Parler or MeWe. If you click on this, you get all kinds of options, where you can put it on Twitter or Facebook, whatever, which we don't support, but you can do whatever you want. So we ask that you share what you see on our We the People convention site, and that you get more people to look at it, because that's the whole idea here, to help educate people, inform them. And then, as I said before, Link, we're not just about talk, we're about action. And in my podcast every week, which is published every Saturday, so if the new podcast usually comes out every Saturday, and in that podcast, I will ask you to do certain things that will help protect and defend your individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity. So that's the We the People Convention website. Come back often, use it to be informed, and share it with others.
All right. We're back for the second half of our podcast. Thank you for joining us for our first half. In that video, I said that we're not on Facebook or YouTube or Twitter, and we are. We're on all of those things, and I haven't gone off yet. Many guys did write to me when I asked you about that, whether I should stay on X or not. And, most of you said I should, so I'm going to do that for now. But thank you for your input on that. And, just know that we have this thing called the Chapters Player on our podcast page, where it takes until Sunday for the AI to process our podcast and give that to us. But basically, after Sunday, you'll see this podcast. So there's a player that plays the whole thing, end to end, and you can use the scroll thing to move ahead and back. But down below, you've got this chapters player where it lists all the articles in the podcast, and you can just click on that, and it takes you right to it, and it even gives you a link that you can then copy and send a text or an email or post on social media that will start the video on that story. So we're trying to give you tools to help share the information, because that's the whole deal, right? I mean, the more people we get to watch this podcast or segments of it, the more people who are informed, and the more people who will take the action I ask you to take to protect and defend your individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity. Okay? So that's the whole game is. So, we're here to inform you so that you can take action to protect and defend your and my and our individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity. So we're going to continue with the podcast here now. I usually do go to international affairs, and there are things happening. So let's talk about that right now. I put an X post earlier this week, and it's TomZWTPC at X.com. If you don't have an X account, please do that, because as things break, like with the shooting, I was posting information in real time on X to help you understand what was really going on. But I had said that the Ukrainians had agreed to the basic understanding of the peace agreement that Trump and Witkoff were trying to get between Russia and Ukraine. But Putin basically has poo-pooed it. He's not going to agree. He was at this conference, and he says it's a nice agreement because it forms the basis for a future agreement. But he basically went to this security summit yesterday and said, listen, you're going to withdraw from these lands, or we're going to military just keep fighting you to take them. He believes he has the upper hand. Now, I had said to you last week that I thought Trump had made a deal with Saudi Arabia to start putting more pressure on Putin by just really destroying his energy sector, his oil sales. And that still may be in the works, but it doesn't look like we're going to have peace anytime soon in Ukraine. And it's not for lack of trying by Trump. There are forces that don't want peace, particularly in Europe, particularly in the U.S. defense industry, and that's what Trump's fighting. But here's the good news. We're not shipping boatloads of money to Ukraine anymore, okay? And we're making NATO buy them from us to make money instead of lose money, okay, if they want to keep fighting. So it's better than it was, but yeah, I don't see any peace coming anytime soon. And so who's the real enemy? I talk about it every week. I give you example after example. Last week I told you about the buildup. A congressional report said that China is on a war footing. They want to defeat us any way they can. So what are they doing? They're funding the trans movement in Ohio. That's the truth, folks. Go to WeThePeopleConvention.org, search on trans. You'll see a story about Chinese billionaires funded the whole thing to undermine your family, your church, our community, our society. It's all part of the operation. It's a psyop. They're buying farmland. They're spying on us. They're trying to poison our food supply. So what are they doing this week? China has unprecedented number of ships in U.S. Arctic waters, DHS says, and this is a bit of a problem, not a good thing. The United States military said it is taking a strategic approach to ramping up our presence in Arctic waters after a report by the U.S. Department of Homeland Security called China visibility in the area unprecedented, never before happening. In 2025, an unprecedented number of Chinese military and research vessels operated in or near U.S. Arctic waters, prompting the U.S. Coast Guard to respond decisively in defense of American sovereignty, the report said. This proactive stance reflects the administration's renewed commitment to securing U.S. borders and interests, even in the remote Arctic region. However, China's continued expansion of its ice-breaking fleet poses a potential challenge to U.S. maritime sovereignty, and future Chinese operations fall outside of legal parameters. This year, the U.S. Coast Guard commissioned a new icebreaker vessel, which is specifically built to navigate waters in the Arctic. The ship, called the USCG Cutter Storis, was the first polar icebreaker acquired by the agency in more than 25 years. According to the Department of Homeland Security, the department officials said the Coast Guard required additional modern vessels to achieve national interests in the Arctic in the 21st century. President Trump's One Big Beautiful Bill Act allocated $8.5 billion to the U.S. to acquire ice-breaking ships on an expedited basis. I think that was from Norway. He met with the president of Norway, the prime minister, whatever it is, and said, we're going to buy some more of these. And adding that a workforce development plan has been implemented to support the creation of skilled workforce capable of designing and constructing complex ice-breaking vessels. So as part of the skilled trades movement that I keep beating on you about, to recruit people to the skilled trades, Trump is actually trying to rebuild the U.S. shipbuilding capabilities because we've just left ourselves totally vulnerable. But the Chinese, they're looking for that vulnerability and they're taking action. If we don't counter that, guess what? They win, we lose. You're now speaking Chinese, and we're basically, the state owns you. Okay? That's what's at stake. Just all your freedom, liberty, and prosperity is at stake. That's all that's at stake. So then I talked to you about Mexico and this Victor David Hansen video where he says what Trump is doing with Venezuela and Colombia and blowing up the boats, and what he's doing by shutting down the borders and stopping China from sending the fentanyl ingredients, it's a war on narco-terrorists. And again, this all comes from China. When Obama was in government and Biden was in government, they let China infiltrate every government in South America. And they did what? They used it to ship drugs to the United States to kill who? Military-age men. Hundreds of thousands of them over a period of years. Trump is going, no, I don't think so. I'm going to defend our American lives by going after them. So part of what Victor Davis Hansen was saying is that Trump is putting pressure on Mexico to let us take out the cartels in Mexico. And so it continued. Farmers, truckers blockade roads, rock Mexican government over lack of action against cartel violence. Farmers and truckers throughout Mexico say they will continue highway blockades and protests throughout the country over Prime Minister Claudia Sheinbaum's government failure to protect them from drug cartels and extortion schemes. The blockade, which has been set up in over 20 of Mexico's 31 states, have grounded nearly all commerce in the state of Mexico, in the nation of Mexico, to a halt. Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum's far-left Morena party contends the protests and blockades are not actually about cartel violence, but instead politically motivated. Yeah, no, that's not true. Figures in Morena have claimed that rival political parties are actually organizing the protests, though they have offered little in the way of evidence. Secretary of Interior Rosa Rodriguez further claimed that many of the people organizing the protests were targets of prior federal investigation. Despite Rodriguez's claims, officials from her office will meet with the demonstrators later this week. I gotta say, without any doubt, our CIA has got to be doing this. This is us. Again, they're doing the color revolution on America. Well, now we're using our assets to do a color revolution in Mexico. Why? Because it's a failed narco state. That's why. It's a failed state. And they're a threat to our national security because of that, and Trump's acting very smartly. And so basically what's going to happen is that the president of Mexico is going to have to ask Trump to provide maybe some missile strikes. Maybe some cruise missiles are taking out some of these most powerful people. Maybe those assets that the weapons, I mean, like I told you, they have their own, under Biden. Understand, and Tom Homan had a piece on this. He said, you've got to understand, the people in Joe Biden's administration were the greatest aides to the narco-terrorists in the history of the world. Every single person who came across, so let's say, it's 10 million, it's 20 million, whatever. Every one of those people had to pay the cartels like $10,000. And some of that money came from your tax money going to USAID, to NGOs in Panama, in Mexico, who paid the $10,000. We paid to create the invasion of our own nation. You and I paid. Not voluntarily. It was stolen from us. And those people, like Catholic Charities, need to go to prison, okay, because they did this. But Trump's trying to stop it. And that's really important because nobody was stopping it. They actually have their own submarines. Literally. They have drones. They might even have, not cruise missiles, but other kinds of missiles. And Mexico can't even defend itself. Internally, the people of Mexico can't defeat the cartels. So Trump is trying to get them to invite us in. Now, we don't want troops on the ground in Mexico, but I would sure love to provide intelligence and targeting and weapons to crush the cartels. Wouldn't you? I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Got to be on your radar. It's real, kids. It's happening. I'm sorry. I had someone write to me and say they are offended by me calling you kids. I don't mean to insult you, all right? So understand, people, that this is real, and you got to have it on your radar. Okay. So on to other things, domestic. Things are not great. It's expensive to go out to eat. There's still a lot of things in all this discussion about is Thanksgiving cheaper than it was last year. It's about the same. Why? Not because of Trump. Because of Biden. Folks, from 4 years of Biden, the cost of goods went up like 20%. Trump is got it slowed down to 2%, but it's still going up, right? And the only way to fix that is to improve your wages and your income so you can afford it, because making it go back is almost impossible. So what are we doing? Well, people are pretty optimistic, and here's your proof. Americans prepare to spend $1 trillion this holiday shopping season, and that's for the first time. That's for the first time. More than half of all Americans plan to buy things over the 5-day holiday weekend, this meaning Thanksgiving weekend, Black Friday, all that stuff, the beginning of retail shopping season, with consumers projected to spend more than $1 trillion. Some 187 million people, United States citizens, plan to shop for Thanksgiving Day through Cyber Monday, according to a consumer survey from the National Retail Federation and Analytics. That's about 3 million more shoppers than last year, when about 184 million did it. The holidays are an important part of many consumers' budgets, and that trend is especially true this season, as a record number of shoppers are expected this Thanksgiving weekend. The National Federal Retailers Annual Holiday Forecast projects retail sales November through Christmas, through December, to be between 3.7 and 4% above last year. Okay? That's says you're optimistic. You're in a holiday mood. Despite what the left wants to tell you about, it's horrible, the world is ending, Trump's an idiot, the economy's not good, you're seeing inflation slow down. Gas prices this Thanksgiving here in Ohio, last night I'm coming home from an event, and it's like $2.54 here in Ohio. Don't know what it is where you are. They said it was $3.04 was the national average. But, we're seeing some improvements. And you ain't seen nothing yet. You ain't seen nothing yet until, guess what happens in January? Those deductions from your paycheck on tips and on overtime, they start getting taken out of your paycheck. You're going to have more money in your paycheck starting in January. You're going to get a bigger tax return because of the withholding that you didn't declare that the big, beautiful bill provided for in this year. And then jobs are going to be coming from all these companies building in our country: automobile plants, pharmacy plants, furniture plants, data centers, AI, energy centers, all this stuff. It's going to be a boom. So it's coming. It's not here, but you can see that people are optimistic, and that's why that's going on. So we still have to fix this problem of workers. So I posted this story, and I said in my emails, before Thanksgiving, talk about this at Thanksgiving. We need 10 million skilled trade workers, yet millions of Americans are not working. Why? Millions of native-born Americans at their prime working age remain out of the nation's labor market. The labor force participation rate, which I reported before, is 62.4%. The Center for Immigration Studies researchers Steve Carmada and Karen Ziegler published an analysis this week showing that the share of American men and women who are working age but who are not in the workforce is still historically high. In particular, just 11.3% of working age men were out of the labor market in the 10 years ago. Today, more than 21% of working age men are not in the labor market. That's a 10% increase. Even among American men considered to be in their prime for employment, aged 25 to 54, more than 11% today are not holding jobs. That figure was just 4% in 1960. Put another way, researchers found millions of American men have dropped out of the workforce in the last 65 years. Well, why is that? Well, we make it too easy. There's too much money floating around, and it isn't merit-based, right? And that's why we have a $38 trillion debt, which we're going to talk about shortly, and why we have a $2 trillion debt every year. We're giving money to people who can work and not need it, and they're not working because we're giving it to them. And oh, yes, I know there are people who can't. I know there are people who deserve our charity, but we're being scammed. That's just the truth, and we need to get smarter. The research note that the mass migration, where the U.S. imports more than 1 million green card holders every year for the sake of filling open American jobs, is not justified when reviewing the growing share of Americans who are able-bodied but not in the market. We keep saying, oh, we're importing these illegals because they do jobs Americans won't do. That's horse hockey. That's not true. And so we have plenty of workers here. They're just not working. The research suggests various reforms that the Trump administration and Congress can undertake to fix the problem, including welfare reforms, combating the opioid crisis. You think by killing the cartel leaders and stopping China from addicting our kids to opioids, that might help? Yeah, that'll help a lot. Reviewing the U.S. approach to globalization, and most significantly, reducing legal immigration requirements, like HB1 visas, right? Trump's working on it. We have a choice as a country. We can either adopt policies designed to get more working-age Americans currently on the economic sidelines into the jobs, or we can ignore the problem and continue to bring in ever more immigrants and then try to manage all the pathologies associated with our higher rate of working-age people not in the workforce. I choose cutting the benefits, getting people out and working, rewarding them with better jobs, with jobs that don't suck as bad, I guess, as I would say. Young people say, oh, I hate my job, it sucks. Well, maybe AI is going to make that a little easier, a little more interesting. Anyone you know who is able-bodied and not working, you got to start using social pressure to say, man, it's not just about you. It's about all of us. It's about America. We need you helping to pull the weight so we can help the people that need help, right? That's the answer. You need to have that discussion. That's a direct ask. It's not wrong to bring that up. It's right to bring that up. So, we're spending $1 trillion on gifts, but we got people who aren't working because they got money enough that they don't have to work. And so this story came out, and this is a real positive, even though there's a downside to it. Conservative women are having a lot more babies than liberals, and that's a good thing, right? It's a great replacement program for lefties. Remember how they're bringing in the illegals to replace white people? And they said, oh, you're just a bigot, you hate brown. No. That's what they were doing. That's what they are trying to do, and Trump has stopped it, and now he's trying to reverse it. They brought in illegals to take over our country, okay? And then they're having lots of babies like the Muslims, right? And we're trying to reverse that. Well, the good news is it is working. A new analysis by Samuel Perry, a sociological professor at the University of Oklahoma, points to a growing ideological divide in childbearing among American women. Using data from the General Social Survey, Perry found that liberal and conservative women 18 to 35 are increasingly making very different decisions about whether to have children. In 2010, the difference in childness between the two groups was small, about 5% gap between all girls 18 to 35. All right? By 2024, however, after all the indoctrination, right? 2024, 14 years of indoctrination about white male toxicity and white males are bad and don't have babies, have a career, and the world's going to end because of the climate. So if you have babies, you hate the climate. All that garbage resulted in this. According to Perry, roughly 75% of liberal women in this age group were childless in 2024, compared with 40% of conservative women. It was a 5% gap in 2010. It's a 75% to 40% is a 35% gap. 35% gap. 75% of lefty women aren't having babies. Liberals are leaning harder to being dinks, dual income, no kids, being childless or having fewer kids, and it's being very much a choice. Whether for conservatives having kids is still very much a part of what it means to be a whole person. So the lefties were educated or indoctrinated into saying kids are bad and I should just buy stuff. That will make me happy. And so not having kids is a good idea. Yeah, tell that to me, when you're at your Thanksgiving dinner when you're 70 like I was and was surrounded by grandkids and grandnephews and things, and it was the most joyous thing ever. Yeah, talk to me about that when you're age 75. You'll be talking to your AI kids, I guess. Anyway, data reflects broader demographic shifts across the United States. Birth rates have continued to decline, with recent figures showing U.S. total fertility rate hovering at 1.6 births per woman, well below the replacement level of 2.1. So the good news is conservatives are having babies, and lefties aren't, so they're going to be gone. All right? The bad news is they're killing our country by not doing that, so we need more conservative babies. All right? We're doing okay. We need more. The continued downturn has raised concerns among analysts who note that declining family formation among young adults, especially younger liberals, may have accelerated long-term population stagnation. May have, not may have, it has. Okay? So what's the problem? What's the problem? We have a fundamental problem. And most of our viewers are older, like me, all right? And here's the real problem. The 60s generation, who were the most selfish people in history, for that entire 50-year period since the 60s, they've been stealing from our children for themselves. And that's why we have Social Security that is not funded. This is why we tax the heck out of our children so they can pay for our Social Security. That's why we want gimme for all of us. Now, I get it. Personal responsibility. We help our children. We help our parents. We are trying to not be on the dole to do this. But too many people are. But look at our policies. What have we done to promote having babies? Nothing. We've promoted abortion to stop having babies. We've promoted government policies that are anti-family, anti-children. You want me to prove it? Yeah, I'll give you the best example in the world. Hungary. Here's what Hungary does for families. Under Hungary's constitution, the fundamental law of Hungary, the state explicitly states that their goal is to protect the institution of marriage and regards the family defined as parents with children as the foundation of the nation. The law states that the country shall support the commitment to have children. As law. That's not in our First Amendment. That's not anywhere in our Constitution. Family policy is treated as a long-term national priority, not merely a short-term welfare program. Hungary offers a suite of financial support tied to children and parenthood, including family allowance, a monthly payment per child provided from birth until the child finishes school. The nation does that for them. It's not welfare, it's pro-family. Tax benefits, reductions in taxable income based on number of children. For example, families with one child get a base deduction, and for 3 or more children, the monthly tax-based reduction per child is substantial. A one-time birth allowance for each child, a single or twin, to help with early child raising, child raising concerns. Okay, But if you have 4 kids and you're a mom, you get lifetime exemption from income tax. You see that anywhere here? You see that anywhere in our policies? Mom's a tough job. Let me tell you, I saw it this weekend. Our daughter, our daughter-in-law, our niece, they're raising 2, 3 children. It's tough. Yeah, and I know it was tough for you. I know it was tough for us. But guess what? We're not helping them. We're not doing a damn thing. Let's see, subsidized home loans. Families, especially with children, can access preferred home building or home buying loans. They are often more generous for families with more children. Support for newly married couples. For example, a discount scheme for first-time married couples receive a modest monthly benefit for a set period of time after marriage. They get, I told you that in Hungary, if you get 4 children, the government buys you a minivan. Now, I got it. You old timers saying, well, nobody gave us a minivan and we raised our kids and, we just gutted it out. Folks, daycare didn't cost $16,000 a year when we grew up. We paid a woman, I don't know, who knows, $100 a week or something to watch our kids so we could work. It's a different world. Cars didn't cost $40,000 when we were young. But here's the deal. Why, if we care about families and kids, now I would like the wife to stay home or the husband, one of them, okay, to stay home and raise their kids. And these Hungarian tax incentives and stuff would help do that. But if we're going to have both people working, healthcare should cost nothing. Not healthcare. Daycare should cost nothing. And how come our kids can't find daycare centers? Because they can't get anyone to work in them. How about some incentives for daycare centers? How about some priorities for that? How about some incentives for college kids to work in daycare centers while they get their education degree or something? My point is this. We have a problem with population, and we're going to go extinct, don't you know, because our policies are killing babies and families. We've got to change that. You need to talk to your elected representatives about changing that. State, local, federal. This is nuts, what we're doing. And complaining about it ain't going to fix it. I got news for you. If having babies was cheap, kids would be having babies. 20-year-olds, 25-year-olds, 30-year-olds would be having babies. They don't have them because they can't afford it. Our kids, our daughter-in-law was carrying our little Weston, our youngest one, who's 8 months old, around and talking, looking at her husband saying, I'd like to have another one. And our son's looking at her and saying, we can't afford the 2 we got. That's the truth. What are you going to do about it? What are we going to do about it as a nation? Don't just sit there and let the species go extinct, damn it. Do something. Yeah, it's the right thing to do, particularly if you're a Christian and you read the Bible. All right, so now, I just talked about all this government help for families because we need government. We want to promote the things that are important, right? So conservatives, we're not libertarians. We're not anarchists. We don't want no government. We want focused government. We want government to do what's best for us, like kill the cartel people so they won't poison our kids with drugs, okay? But where's that line? Well, here's the line, the debate. Trump wants to give $2,000 from tariffs to every family. And Ron Johnson said we can't afford $2,000 tariff rebates. And he's right. He's right. At least one Republican senator has said that the U.S. government cannot afford a Trump administration proposal to send $2,000 tariff-driven rebate payments to families. If they're bringing in revenue through tariffs, they ought to be applied to reduce the deficit, not just to make cash payments to Americans, Senator Ron Johnson told Fox Business Maria Bartiromo on Monday. Bartiromo then said, it sounds like you would be a no vote in terms of the $2,000 checks going to individuals. He added, we can't afford it, and we can't. And he wishes the U.S. government was in a position to return American public their money, but we're not. We have at least a $2 trillion deficit this year. We're spending $2 trillion more than we're taking in. That's unacceptable. That's disgraceful. And he said, and we have to start focusing on that and doing something about that before we can give any money back. The Treasury Department said that as of Tuesday, the federal government has a $38.3 trillion national debt. So the debt is the accumulated deficits. The deficit is how much we're overspending every damn day. And it's billions or hundreds of billions a day. We got to stop that before we get a check. He said, the United States spent around $284 billion more than it has collected so far this year. We are on borrowed time here, and we can't afford it. So that's the truth. So I'm not being hypocritical and saying, let's help all these families. I'm saying, let's stop funding people who don't have families, who can work for a living, who can pay taxes to help get down our debt. Let's take the tariff money and balance our budget. What did I ask you to do last week? And I'm going to ask you right now to do again. In our podcast page at wethepeopleconvention.org, it says this week's actions. And on it said, contact your senators and congressmen and say you're doing the appropriations process. You're going through the budget of the federal government and you're debating it in your committees. Where are the cuts? Where are the cuts? You can't just keep saying we can't cut anything. I just showed you that we're paying people not to work. You got to cut that. You got to cut benefits for SNAP to people who aren't eligible. You got to stop giving benefits to foreigners, illegals who are broken in our country. Where are those cuts? Your job this week is to contact your senator and congressman and say, we want cuts in the budget. Real cuts. Everything depends on that. That's our biggest national security threat. You got to ask for that. But don't give us a $2,000 check. It's not appropriate. We don't have the money. That's what Biden did. We got to stop it. Okay? This is good news. Medicare slashes prices by 15 for 15 prescription drugs. This is, again, where Trump is trying to make living more affordable. Medicare officials announced on November 25th that negotiated prices for 15 of the program's most expensive drugs, anticipating a 44% decrease compared to last year's price, resulting in a potential savings of $12 billion. New prices are scheduled to go into effect at the start of 2027, so that's a bad thing. But again, it takes time to do this. 44% reduction in the cost of drugs, particularly when we, the taxpayers, are paying for them, for me, for senior citizens and Social Security and Medicare or Medicaid, right? That's billions of dollars. $12 billion. I'll take it. Give me that every day. And we still wouldn't be out of debt. Okay? And then I've been asking you, and this is another ask, and here it is again. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent makes the case to end the filibuster. And we agree. You agree. Why? The rhinos don't want to end the filibuster because they're saying, oh, it protects the minor. Shut up. We are at war. The left is trying to destroy our nation, and if they win next year, you can bet they're going to get rid of the filibuster if they could. But we have to get rid of the filibuster. Why? So that we can implement by law, not executive orders, all the changes we want to make in immigration law, the healthcare things we do, in economics with the Fed and stuff. We want to clean up voting rolls, right? We want to make it illegal to mail in votes. We want you to vote in person with an ID. That can be done in law. We want to protect children with the SAVE Act from the logarithms that I talked about last week, where it's destroying boys with social media. And now with AI, we need legislation in AI to protect us. The Republicans don't want to do it. The Democrats don't want to do it because they're getting big checks from the AI guys. If we don't get rid of the filibuster, we're not going to be able to fix this. And so this article, you should read it. It's an op-ed by our Treasury Secretary, and he makes the case. The American people are just now emerging from the longest and most devastating government shutdown in U.S. history. And while the blame lies squarely with the Democrats, we cannot ignore the weapon they use to hold the country hostage, the legislative filibuster. In January, when spending considerations come again, if Democrats once again choose to shut down the government, then the Republicans should immediately end the filibuster. Not good enough. Not if they shut it down again. End the filibuster to implement the MAGA agenda. If you don't do that, it's all vapor. It can disappear like that. Everything Trump's doing can disappear. It's not an option. It's not a nice thing. It's a requirement to make America great again, by taking the executive orders Trump has done and making them law. That's what you have to do. Read that. You'll love it. It's good. And so it's just really important, folks. The filibuster, right? Stopping the illegal invasion, getting the economy going in again, because the whole world depends on it. Trump's midterm performance could define a populist decade or cause carnage the world over. Carnage. Carnage. Not problems. Carnage. The Western world is watching the second Trump term with as much attentiveness as American citizens. Why? Because they have almost as much skin in the game. Next year doesn't simply mark a decade since the MAGA movement forcefully took the global stage, but also a decade since the United Kingdom voted to leave the European Union. Remember, Brexit was right there with us, right? A decade since Italy's globalist government collapsed. A decade since Marine Le Pen broke through the national polling in France, where they tried to stop her. Australia's Freedom Party ran the establishment close, and Duarte's won in the Philippines. The alternative for Deutschland, AfD, became a significant fixture in domestic German politics for the first time, and Gert Weidler's PVV began making its breakthrough. What will Nigel Farage become the Prime Minister of Britain? Will the reassembled Reassemblement National recover from the lawfare against Marie Le Pen? They did to Le Pen, the woman who was going to win in France, they did Trump lawfare to her and took her out. But her party is still there. Will they win? Will Hungary, through voting by April next year, choose stability in the form of Viktor Orban, or will the globalists and the leftists, kill the alliance like they did in New York just 10 days ago with Mamdani? Okay? They want to take out Orban because he has pro-family, pro-children policies. They hate him in Europe. We love him. He's with us. He has the same values as us. Well, there's still a lot of time until the midterm elections in the U.S. There's no question that a strong showing from the Republican Party and the MAGA movement would contribute momentum to Hungarian-American relations and help Hungary. The Biden era is not good for Hungary. The relationship really suffered. So many in Hungary are understandably rooting for the success of MAGA and Republicans next year. Colleagues across the world echo this concern. The midterms will matter almost as much to Brits as they do to Americans. The successes of the second Trump administration will have knock-on effects in England, just as Brexit did back in 2016. French conservatives have similar sentiments. What I have heard in my travels is that the right in Europe is wondering if it's already the comeback of extreme left. In other words, they're worried that if we lose next year, the extreme left is going to come back globally. We can't allow that. And so we talk about the truth here, okay? We're about the truth. You need to enjoy your holidays. From now till the end of this year, soak it in. Live the American dream. Buy those gifts. See those families growing. Invest in America, in recruiting people as skilled workers into the trades. But come January, buckle up. We're in for the fight of our lives. And I know I say this all the time. I've been saying it for 16 years, but it was true then. It's true now. And there's no getting away from it. You and I are going to have to take all we've got and invest it in America again. This year, we simply must win next November. We must. Or they'll be impeaching Trump and it all stops. It all stops. It's going to be hard work. It's going to be tough. It's going to cost money and time and effort. But I'm just telling you, gear up. Rest up now and gear up, kids. I'm sorry. Gear up, people. Because that is our duty. That is what we must do. I wish it weren't so. I would love to walk away from politics. I would love to just be with our grandchildren and our children and our community and just keep making our lives better. We can't just do that if they steal our country again. We can't just do that if China wins the AI war and Project Genesis mission fails. We can't just do that if the left causes riots and we don't support Trump in crushing them. We can't have the life we want to have if we don't counter the garbage that the left puts out about America. We can't have this unless we have babies and create, the future. That's on us. I just showed you. The whole world is counting on it. The whole world. It is. We are the defenders of individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity. And now, 2026 is the year we must do that. Now, I sure hope after that we've slayed most of our enemies and that a younger generation can take on the fight. But I'm just here to tell you, it's all men on deck. All people need to reach out and grab their weapons and fight this fight. Because there's no giving up on the left. They know they're cornered. They're going to use violence. They're going to use riots. They're going to sabotage our economy. The Chinese will do anything. We got to be ready for anything and fight back and win. Okay? All right. So I promise you, I guess got a couple more stories, in the podcast. It's been a shorter podcast than usual, so that's kind of cool. I didn't do that on purpose, not because I was too hungover from my turkey dinner. I'm doing fine. Today I'm looking forward to the Ohio State game, and stuff. But these are just the stories that mattered that I thought you should know. And so I want to talk to you about this story because I think it's important. The number one, quote, artist on the Christian music charts is an AI, and is that a good thing? And I put out a message to you guys and said, come read this and then let me know. And so write to me at info@wethepeopleconvention.org and tell me what you think about this story. But I think this story is fundamental to the whole thing that's happening with AI. And it brings that into focus, so I'm going to take a minute to do this. Solomon Ray topped iTunes Top 100 Christian and Gospel Albums chart last week, and he's not even real or Christian or black. There's a picture of him. He's a really nice-looking black guy, except he doesn't exist. Ray is solely a creation of artificial intelligence. In his most recent release, a Christmas album called A Soulful Christmas, featuring tracks with titles like The Soul to the World and Jingle Bell Soul, reports Christianity Today, Ray is a verified artist on the streaming platform, drawing over 324,000 monthly listeners and became the top artist on the iTunes Top 100 Christian and Gospel Album chart this week. But Solomon Ray is not a real person. Artificial intelligence crafted his persona, voice, and performance style and lyrics. Here's a video of Solomon Ray singing Silent Night, and you can click on it on our website, wethepeopleconvention.org. You can listen to them. Okay? So what's the problem? A competing Christian artist named Forrest Frank said, at minimum, AI does not have the Holy Spirit inside of it, so I think that it's really weird to be opening up your spirit to something that has no spirit. Okay? So many people feel like that, like AI is the Antichrist. It has a religious component to it. All kinds of people void of the Holy Spirit, meaning secular artists, have sung and even written beautiful Christmas songs. It's not the source that matters, it's how the source affects the listeners. Silent Night is Silent Night regardless of the source. So if you like the way this sounds, you're still hearing the words to Silent Night, which is a beautiful Christian song. So what's the problem? And then the author of this says, and let's not forget that behind this AI creation, there are human beings with souls who create, tweak, and refine the sound, style, and looks to their liking. Think of Solomon Ray as another version of the synthesizer or auto-tune. Honestly, I don't see a moral difference. But so-called purists have been losing their minds over musical progress since Elvis lifted his lip and Dylan went electric. For 3 decades already, musicians who cannot play various instruments have released music online using computer programs that play the instruments for them. 3 decades, 30 years, that's a lot. There's nothing wrong with that. Musicians are still being behind the computer-generated music, which means they are still creating the music. All AI is another version of that. That's his thing. Maybe Solomon Ray's creators have an ear but not a voice. What I mean is that his creators know what he wants the song to sound like, but doesn't have the voice to make it real. So like the YouTuber who can't play the drums, Solomon Ray creators use a computer program to get that sound. Solomon Ray, the AI #1 singer on the Christian charts, is nothing more than an advanced drum machine. Last week, last month, last year, all the outrage buzzed together. There was an uproar over an AI country song that was #1. Okay? Again, if people like it, so what? The only way to succeed in popular culture is through appeal. You must appeal to enough people to make a profit, and by extension, have a career. If a guy on a computer-generated AI can appeal to more people than you, isn't that your problem? It's an interesting point. By all means, there should be disclosure when something is AI generated. Beyond that, and I say this is as a political writer, when AI is replacing political writers, I say this as a retired novelist, when AI is replacing novelists, if you can't beat the machine, whose fault is that? Okay? Let me know what you think. Info at wethepeopleconvention.org. Do you get his point or not? I think it's an important point. Last week's show, we opened up with the surprise that Marjorie Taylor Greene, representative from Georgia, Republican, was retiring in January. And I posted that story after the podcast because it broke that morning last week. And then I actually posted her comments. I said, watch her 10-minute video where she explains things. And then she did a 4-page story. Well, then I found a month before this interview between Tucker Carlson and Marjorie Taylor Greene that was talking about what was bugging her. I found this very interesting about her views of Washington, of Trump, of MAGA, what's going on. So that's now at wethepeopleconvention.org. And the video is much longer. Tucker Carlson is talking for like 30 minutes about his views, but I made the video start when he starts interviewing Marjorie Taylor Greene. You might want to check that video out, okay? And then I want to hear if you guys check this video out. The Age of Disclosure exposes decades-long UFO cover-up featuring Marco Rubio and top U.S. officials. Did any of you guys go to see it, or did you pay, I think it's $15 on Amazon Prime to watch it? It was released last weekend, and it was in select theaters. So I haven't seen any dollar figures for how many people saw it, but I heard some buzz that people want to see it. I'm going to play for you the trailer for this video. Tell me what you think of this.
The American people are ready to receive the truth.
Humanity is not the only intelligence in the universe.
Humanity is not the only intelligent species.
We are absolutely not alone.
Non-human intelligence exists.
UAPs are real, they're here, and they're not human. I spent 25 years as a senior official with the CIA.
I worked on highly classified UAP programs.
28 years as an astrophysicist.
I served as the 4th Director of National Intelligence.
Director of Aviation Security in the National Security Council.
A one-star admiral after 32 years of service.
People that come forward with this, I feel like they've taken their life in their own hands.
I was recruited to a highly sensitive government program that investigated unidentified aerial phenomenon.
For over 16 years, on behalf of the U.S. government, I worked as a senior intelligence official on the unidentified aerial phenomenon topic.
We learned that the U.S. government was involved in a long-running secret war with other nations to collect and reverse engineer vehicles not made by humans.
I have seen with my own eyes non-human craft and non-human beings.
It's rotating. There's a whole fleet of them.
The first country that cracks the code on this technology will be the leader for years to come.
China has established its own version of a UAP task force.
You think for a second that they wouldn't consider using it to achieve their ends of domination?
This is similar to the Manhattan Project. This is the atomic weapon on steroids.
This is so secret, very, very few people in our entire government have been allowed access to it.
Even presidents have been operating on a need-to-know basis, but that begins to ramp out of control.
It's not acceptable to have secret parts of government that no one ever sees.
You better be careful about a government that doesn't trust its people, because there's no telling what they'll pull on you.
This is the biggest discovery in human history.
You had information being locked away that could change the trajectory for species.
It has so many beneficial impacts, including clean energy.
We should have disclosure today. We should have disclosure tomorrow. The time has come.
There you go. I think they have the worst name ever. What's it called? The Age of Disclosure. What kind of a name for a movie is that? What does it even mean? Anyway, if you saw it, write to me. Tell me what you think. Okay? If you don't believe them, let me know. But it's pretty interesting, what's come out, because there's 34 pretty high-level public officials who are basically saying it's true. So who knows? But it looks like we're getting closer to finding out who knows. All right? So that was pretty cool. And so let me know if you got to watch that. We're going to wrap up the show, and as always, I say to you, we will fulfill Charlie Kirk's mission by completing America's spiritual revival. And that is, ever present. You see quotes from Charlie online all the time. And I said to all of you when Charlie was murdered that the thing that's amazing is because of all the videos he did, because of our society today, like me. I mean, how many videos are there of me? How many hours of video are there over the last 15 years? And because Charlie was doing that he's going to be like alive forever, because if someone sees him speaking about a topic 10 years from now, it'll be totally relevant. Like Thomas Sowell or somebody, right? And so it's already happening. And so here we had this Afghan who was working with our CIA in Afghanistan, was brought here, okay, and now he kills 2 of our National Guard members, and now we're talking about what was Biden doing? Well, here's Charlie Kirk on that very topic, like he was saying it this week. Here it is.
President Joe Biden's Department of Defense will accept 30,000 Afghan refugees into military installations following the collapse of Kabul. Boom. Political transformation. Let the country crumble. Do you know there's 5 million displaced people in Afghanistan now? This was all intentional. Joe Biden let it fall apart to now say, oh, I'm so sorry. I guarantee you Joe Biden's speech this afternoon will talk about refugee assistance and relocation support. Now, Joe Biden's going to be scrambling to make good on it, and the liberal media will love it. They'll say, oh, yes, okay, now I get it. Joe Biden is now fixing his own problem. Joe Biden is stepping up, and he's allowing a flow of people from the Middle East into America. Thank you, Joe Biden. You're such a hero. You're so benevolent. You're so respectful. You're so compassionate. Do you see what's going on here? What's going on here is Joe Biden wants a couple 100,000 more Ilhan Omars to come into America to change the body politic permanently. We're playing checkers, and they're playing chess.
How's that? How's that for impression, right? He said a couple 100,000. What'd I tell you? There's 190,000 Afghans in the United States that Joe Biden and his Marxist colleagues not allowed in, brought in intentionally to destabilize our nation. That's what we're up against. And we're going to beat them. We're going to beat them. We're going to kick them out. We're going to restore our nation. And we're going to punish the people who did this. These traitors, these people who intentionally acted to rig the election in 2020 and to overthrow President Trump and are doing it still today. Justice is coming. Justice is coming. All right, so we're going to wrap up the podcast. What do you got to do? You got to tell people about this podcast. Share it. You can share the link from our webpage. You can watch it on YouTube. You can watch it on X. You can watch it on Rumble. You can watch it on your Roku TV or Amazon Prime TV. Write to us. Send your comments to info@wethepeopleconvention.org. info@wethepeopleconvention.org. And if you can donate, please do, because we're going to need all the resources we can get for the fight that's ahead next year. And I'm already looking at how we're going to allocate those resources to fight and win as we have done so many times before. And for those of you who are new to the podcast, and I know I had someone suggest that at the beginning of the podcast, I tell the new people about our organization, what we've done. And if you go to wethepeopleconvention.org and click on contact, and then you'll see a little link that says Tom Z's bio. And if you click on that, you'll get an understanding of what we've done. Yeah, we elected President Trump president. We defeated Barack Obama when he targeted the Tea Party. We saved fracking. We saved fracking in our nation, and that's why we have the energy we have. We elected Donald Trump president in 2024. And in 2026, we're going to do even better than that, and we're going to preserve and protect our individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity by crushing the left in the 2026 election, by winning the House and the Senate by margins they can't believe. That's the goal. No mercy. We're going to destroy our enemies and defend our nation and our families and our lives. Okay? I hope you have a great remainder of the 4th of July weekend if you're watching over the weekend, and just, enjoy the football season. I'm sorry for all you guys in Michigan, but I got to say, go Buckeyes. Hopefully we're going to have a good day today, though it's going to be a heck of a game. But for all the other college rivalries, enjoy the rivalry. Even if you don't win, there's nothing better than college football rivalries. So I'm going to sign off for this week. Thank you for taking your time to watch and listen. Thank you for acting on the things we ask you to do. Go to our podcast page at wethepeopleconvention.org. Podcast, and I list every week action items for this week. Do them, and you will protect and defend our nation and your individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity. Okay? Take action, and we'll be just fine. We're way bigger than them. All right. God bless all of you, and may God continue to bless the United States of America. You've been watching the We the People Convention, and my name, We the People Convention News and Opinion Weekly Podcast, and my name is Tom Zawistowski. See you next week. Bye now.
That's why